everyone, my name is Pragna Nidumolu, and I'm the founder of EcoTeens, which is an initiative that helps raise awareness of climate change and how teens can come together across the globe to do their part in making this world a greener place for them and future generations to live in. As a part of EcoTeens, we launched a podcast called Green Stories to bring diverse perspectives on sustainability and what we all can do as global citizens to address climate change. Today, we have a very special guest in this episode, Chris Gauthier. He is a passionate advocate and voracious student of circular and sustainable solutions, and he has a diverse and varied background spanning across research, defense and intelligence, strategy and business model design, automation and AI, and biomimicry. Each stopping point on this journey has brought me priceless knowledge, critical skills, and essential experience. I am now bringing this, my disposition as a lifelong learner, and my drive to deliver impact to sustainable and circular solutions. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Pragna. I appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Yeah, it's great talking to you today. So my first question is, what is your sustainable impact on this world? So what role have you played to make an impact?
Wow, that's actually a deep first question. I would like to say it's been huge and massive and all this stuff, but honestly, I think I have the guilt of awareness. So I didn't spend a lot of my life really focused on sustainability, truly sustainability. I would recycle and I try to limit my amount of water and things like that. And it wasn't until recently that I really started paying attention to everything I do as a consumer. And I understand that there is a lot of very valid point to be made that focusing just on us as individuals rather than on large polluters and so forth is less than ideal. But to maybe answer the question directly, I try to make an impact on a daily basis with my choices in whether it's a product or the things I use, toothpaste, going to more powders and gels and things like that, rather than have the goofy little tube every time. And then up through what I do on a daily basis at both of my work with KPMG and then also with my work in biomimicry. So through there, I try to make a more systemic change. How do we change the way companies operate? How do we change the way we design things? So I don't know if I have a quantitative answer to that question. Maybe a qualitative answer would be to say a growing impact, hopefully.
I think that's very important. No matter how small it is, every step counts. Everything you do can help the environment. And I think that's important, that not everyone realizes that everyone has a role to play, even if they're just small things like a different type of toothpaste. That really helps bringing awareness to. You mentioned biomimicry. Do you want to elaborate on that and the work you do?
Sure. So biomimicry is I would call it a way of thinking, a discipline, a way of thinking within the larger community of folks who are trying to address sustainability, regenerative systems, this kind of work. And what it basically does at its root, at its basic level, maybe not its root, is it says, let's look at nature, because the natural world has been here for 3.8 billion years, and it's run into the same problems that we run into on a daily basis, and literally on a daily basis. Everything from big questions from, how do you convert sunlight to energy, to little questions, how do I stick something to a wall, right? I mean, and the brilliance of biomimicry, which the term was coined in a book by Janine Benyus in 1998, and a number of people, Janine Benyus, Dana Baumeister, and others have taken and embraced the idea and created whole methodologies around it. But the brilliance of biomimicry is that at its core, that is the core and the root, is it has a central theme of create conditions conducive to life. And so looking at that whole, how do you stick something to a wall? Well, we can use a glue or tape or something like that, which is made using toxic chemicals and these kinds of things, and maybe even leave a toxic residue. Or we can look at a gecko and figure out how does a gecko stick to a wall and learn from nature. So instead of learning about nature, it's learning from nature. And then that goes across a number of different levels, everything from a functional example like I just gave with the gecko, all the way up to a systems level. How do we design an entire city to act like an ecosystem, where instead of inputting material and outputting waste, you don't see that in a forest or a desert or a mangrove forest or a swamp. There's inputs, there is usage of those inputs in a circular way and relatively self-sustaining, and then any outputs are usually, or not usually, always used by other things. So you get runoff from forests and things that end up in, here in the United States, say the Mississippi River, and that flows downstream, and things downstream use those materials that are waste to one thing and material to them until the point that they get out into the ocean and they're used for materials there as well. So that's the idea of biomimicry. And what I do there is I bring my skills to groups. The background behind me is the Alhambra in Spain. So I support a group in Spain called Biomimicry Granada, in which they're trying to bring biomimicry to the Iberian Peninsula. I work with other groups as well and just try to bring my background and experience as a biologist, as a consultant, and also someone who spent his time in the United States government, bringing all those different perspectives into the biomimicry world. Long answer, but.
That's so interesting. I've actually not heard much about biomimicry before this, so you learn something every day.
it,
So
it's an underappreciated discipline. I'll say that, and the word is getting out, and there's actually a lot of educational resources out there, growing educational resources. So
yeah, I definitely want to learn more about that. That's a really interesting topic. So why is sustainability important to you? Why did you get into sustainability?
that is a great question. So when I was much younger, sixth, seventh grade, I was an avid nature fanboy, would be the term we would use today. I couldn't get enough nature, like everything. And so I always had an appreciation for the natural world. And I thought, in my youth, I thought that I very much had that sort of mankind as a leech, as a parasite on the natural world perspective. And then as I went through my life, I've refined that position to recognize that we are part of nature, and we, instead of being destructive, we need to learn how to play by the rules and be nice. And so I think part of that catalyzed was the birth of my son, who is 18 now, but there's an old saying, and it's been attributed to so many people. I don't know who actually said it originally, but we don't inherit the earth from our parents, we borrow it from our children. And so effectively, we're doing a pretty poor job of stewarding things right now, and we need to change that. So, and then just sort of the general, just the ethic of it, right? Which is just do the right thing, even when no one's looking. And as an individual, as a group, as a species, just do the right thing. It's a pretty simple integrity question.
I agree so much with that. It's so important that we build a better planet for our future generations, because if we don't, then what's left for them? We need to have a way to keep this world a safe, green, healthy place for more and more generations to come, not just the coming few. And I totally agree with what you've said.
Exactly. It's interesting when I talk to people about sustainability, about regenerative systems, biomimicry, and as my background is in biology, and I mentioned to them, hey folks, you recognize, and you need to recognize that all of the oxygen you breathe, we don't make that. It doesn't just happen. It's actually the product of living things. And while it sounds crazy and insane, I mean, the chance of us running out of oxygen anytime soon, not high, but it reinforces the fact that no matter how much an individual or a group of people think they're independent of the natural world, we are very much dependent on the natural world. So destroying it is, as you said, is not going to be very good for future generations.
Right. It's important to sustain
Yeah.
sustainability. So, my next question is, what are ways people can be sustainable in their everyday lives? You've mentioned the small things, but what are other ways? What
This is a good one because it's a hot topic right now. There's a lot of discussion around this. I'm a believer that the heart of the discussion is that what's your carbon footprint concepts were actually originated by large petroleum companies to shift the blame from them to you. It's not their fault, it's your fault. You're consuming it, you got to fix it. I totally agree with that and accept that. However, I do believe that it's everything. We have to act individually. We have to act as societies and cultures and whole species. So I think everything's important. So to answer the question, I think the first and most important thing is just educating ourselves. Where do things come from? Understanding life cycle assessments, maybe not at a subject matter expert level, but understanding that everything we have has a tail to it. The computer I'm talking to you on, the desk that is sitting in front of me, this has a tail. It had to be, all of these things had to be mined and built and made, and trees cut down and shipped on a truck, and understanding more about that, even at a high level, and then applying that concept to our lives. The reason why we talk about local, eating local, shopping local as a sustainable approach is because you decrease the amount of carbon and other things emitted in hauling things, from all around the world. So eating local, I'm a big fan. As you can tell, I'm not a fashionista myself, but I am actually a big fan of, and this is a more recent education on my part, understanding what happens to clothing and textiles in this country, Europe, Canada, Australia, and how it ends up in places like Southeast Asia and Africa and polluting their worlds. And so the idea of getting your clothes to last longer, either through just accepting a couple of wear and tear marks or repairing your clothes, and also shopping at thrift stores and secondhand stores and reusing products. So this sweatshirt I'm wearing is actually, I never went to Scranton University, but is a perfectly good sweatshirt. I'm like, this is why, so thinking about those things, and then thinking about the little things in our lives, everything from toothpaste to recyclable containers. I've been impressed. Amazon has issues across the board, but I have been impressed with their move away from plastic packaging and bubbles and things like that. And a lot of things I've been receiving through Amazon now have recyclable packaging and so forth. So on an individual basis, I would say it starts with education, and then once you have that education, even at a high level, looking at all of the things we do in our lives. How can we extend the life of things? How can we close loops by, rather than throwing it away and sending it to a landfill, how do we recycle it? How do we upcycle it? How do I reuse? I think about my grandfather and my father. I would go into their homes and they would have all kinds of things recycled and upcycled. How many crazy stories I have. And then in my younger days, I was thinking, oh, I'll just go buy it new because I'm not going to be like dad. And now I'm thinking, why not make a desk out of scrap wood you've got laying around? Does it have to be IKEA? No, it has to have a flat surface and high enough that you can type. And so thinking about things like that and getting out of our consumerism, getting out of our commercial marketed to mindset. Again, long answer, but I think broadly speaking, that's what I would approach it as. And that should not be making noise.
I think that is very powerful. It all starts with education, like you said, and I think people need to be more educated in these times. Sustainability is spreading around a lot more, and the world is becoming more aware, but we still need to take a lot more steps. Like you've said, there's so many ways that we can. And we as a community need to come together and use these principles and move forward. So
Completely agree.
finally, what is your message to the teen population and everyone around the world to get their act together in support of sustainability?
Um, I'm going to take a page from a good friend of mine, Daniel Kinzer out in Hawaii, who runs a school out there, and say that it really is a group effort. We need, my generation needs your generation's help. There's so much creativity and so many great ideas and so much passion and energy. Bring it, like bring it. You know, talk to people, hear the wisdom if there is wisdom or knowledge. A lot of us in this generation, we have some experiences that we can help avoid catastrophes sometimes. But bring your knowledge, bring your enthusiasm. Don't be afraid by no, you can't do it. Anytime someone says no, ask them why. Why? Explain this to me. Why can't I do it? Because maybe they're right. Maybe your original approach wasn't exactly right, but their no is just no. And you can figure out a way around it. So bring the excitement, bring the creativity, bring the enthusiasm, and bring the knowledge of how some of the new technologies are being used. It's one of the things I love about biomimicry is this idea that technology isn't bad. It's just the way we're doing it right now isn't so great. And so there is a future whereby there are still tablets and phones and mobile devices and 5G and all of that, just not destroying the planet in the process. So that those two things are not incompatible. They just have to be done right. And so my message, I guess, would be, bring everything you've got because we need all the help we can get and jump on board.
Wow, that is really powerful. And people really need to listen to that because our generation, like you said, if we work together, then there's so many things we can do. Like with technology, if we, like you said, if we use it in the right way, then we can make such a big change in this world.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and it was a pleasure talking to you. See you in the next one.
Thank you.